back, just covering these different subjects. Today we've done incarnations and the plan of creation. Plan to go through these other ones, the three things: God being a person, the soul's journey, other planets, the golden age, and the Lord's pastimes. So we'll do another kirtan and get into it. Govinda Gopal, Bajo Giridhari, Govinda Gopal, Bajo Giridhari, Govinda Gopal, Bajo Giridhari, Govinda Gopal. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Radhe 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 Govinda, Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda, 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 Radhe 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 Govinda, Govinda Radhe Radhe Govinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Nitai Gora, Hare Bol, Nitai Gora, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Nitai Gora, Hare Bol. Okay, so the next subject that I was going to cover is what I called the three things. So essentially the three things are, it sounds funny in the context of what we're just talking about, the material creation and everything, but the three things are the three things that exist. So everything that one can know can be summed up in these three things. And the three things called by different names, but essentially you've got love, wisdom, and uses. So they're the three things. Ken Wilber calls them the good, the true, and the beautiful. So that's another way of seeing it. Swedenborg calls it love, wisdom, and uses. Another way of saying it is where you've got uses, you've got sat, or eternity, and then you've got chit, or knowledge, and then ananda, or bliss. So Sat Chit Ananda. And another name for the Lord is Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha, which means eternity, knowledge, and bliss in the personal form, in a personal form, yeah. So, or human form. So that's Satchitananda, and so that's love, wisdom, and uses. So, in terms of devotion, that's what you've got. Is you've got devotional service is like karma yoga, if you've heard of karma yoga. So that's your work yoga, or your service that you're doing. And then you've got your knowledge, which is called Gyan. So you've got Jnana Yoga, which is cultivation of knowledge, or attainment of wisdom. And then you have your Ananda, or bliss, or love. And so that's where you have devotional service and then devotional knowledge. Then you have the devotion itself, you could say, or the loving aspect. So you hear God is love, so that's sort of another way of explaining these three things is in relation to ourselves. You can say that there's three things that we're capable of doing, and one is to act, so we have actions. The other is to think, so that is our knowledge, and then the third is to feel. So to feel is acting on the affections, and that is the love. So you have love, wisdom, and uses. So made a video briefly talking about karma yoga, jnana yoga, and bhakti yoga. Basically, you can summarize everything up into those three things. And you can understand that the Lord is those three things. And we are also, in a sense, that we have those three operations. Another way of explaining it is soul-body operation. So you have your soul, which would be you have soul-body operation, which is sort of, that's another trinity there that you can see working anyway. So in terms of Radha and Krishna, so you have Radha Krishna, which is the divine forms of the Lord, which I'll show you. So you have, this is Radha and Krishna. So that's their beautiful forms. And where Krishna is the embodiment of wisdom, then you have Radha, who's the embodiment of love. So although God is one person, He separated Himself eternally into these two forms, a male form and a female form, a wisdom form and a love form. One is a love enwrapped in wisdom, and the other is a wisdom enwrapped in love. In the same way, we can also have these forms of either a wisdom or a love. Which gives us either a female form or a male form. And the uses is the actual service component that what you're actually doing, which is it's the love of the service itself, which is like essentially what you do. What it said is that the Lord always ensures that we're in some kind of use of one or another, which means like we'll always be engaged in some kind of action, some kind of act that we're doing, which will be a service to someone. In devotional service, you're trying to do your service for God, Him or herself, and that's why it's called devotional service, because those actions are considered. That's why you have karma yoga. Karma is action, and then yoga means union. So what you're doing is you're uniting your actions with the Lord Himself. So all of your actions become an offering. It's like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, to do everything as an offering to Him. So that's your service component, your actions that you're doing for God. And then the knowledge aspect, or the wisdom, you can cultivate spiritual knowledge. So this is something that there's a difference between like head knowledge and then spiritual knowledge. Namely, you can it's best to rely on the Lord personally for what knowledge that you want. The Lord personally bestows spiritual knowledge, however He can bestow it through books or through teachers and things. So He can bestow that spiritual knowledge, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can like just read a whole bunch of books and stuff and think that that's going to give you spiritual knowledge, because too much reading or something like that can actually be detrimental, and can distort the thing. Knowledge just generally comes of its own self by practicing bhakti, through practicing devotion. So the love, obviously the third component, the love aspect, is the devotional itself, which is which comes through in terms of relationship. So you have your relationship with God, and then you have your spiritual relationship with other beings on the spiritual level. So we have material relationships. They can be spiritualized by, how I understand this is like a soul to a soul. If you can talk to each other on a soul level, then you have a kind of spiritual relationship, and these are like the bonds or the love. In Christianity, it comes down to the two commandments, which is to love the Lord with your heart, mind and soul, and then to love your neighbour as yourself. So those two things are there, but it comes back to the love. The love is that third component, but of course all three are important. You've got your service that you're doing, and then the wisdom attained, and then the loving aspect in itself. And you can see them in those actual forms of Radha and Krishna. You also get the form of Balaram. Balaram is Krishna's brother, and he's in the mood of a servant to Krishna. So even there you can see that service aspect, and that Balaram is always in this mood of being a servant of Krishna. He's considered the emanation that all spiritual teachers come from Balaram, or Nityananda in Chaitanya's incarnations. So yeah, there's these three things all the time, and you can kind of sum at any point during your spiritual journey you can sum up everything that you know into those three things. Everything can be summed up into those three aspects. They just exist eternally. Not really sure what else to say about that. You can't really not encounter them. I mean, I've done a video a little bit on, I started doing one on Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. Yeah, I think that kind of summarizes it. So that's the next subject that I was going to do was God as a person. So this kind of leads into that a little bit. The idea is that the supreme absolute truth is a person, and and the original form is like Radha and Krishna. So they're persons like we're persons, and the best way to understand spirit is understanding the truth of the person, the personal approach. So like another way of saying it is like, because we're persons, the best way to become God realized is to realize God as a person. He has an impersonal component as well. There's like 3 different levels of spiritual realization that one can go through, and the first one is Brahman realization. So Brahman realization is realizing the impersonal aspect of God, which is a oneness kind of thing, where you can practice this in meditation, like sitting down in meditation and then experiencing this oneness feeling, a kind of like a sort of like a merging sort of feeling with the spiritual energy. So that's like merging with the effulgence of God, like Krishna's like golden effulgence that comes off. It's sort of like a merging with that energy. And then you have super soul realization, which is realizing God in the heart, which is kind of personal then, because then you have intuition. So you have intuition, and you have a connection with God talking. You can actually connect to God and like hear His voice through His connection in the super soul. And then thirdly you have Bhagavan realization. So Bhagavan realization is God in the personal form, which is when you're fully realized of the fact that God is a person in full form, and you can engage in all different ways in relation to God as that person. So a good way to do that would be listening to pastimes or something like that. If you listen to the pastimes of Radha Krishna or of Jesus, or listen to Chaitanya Leela or something like that, there's a really good thing on the internet, the Chaitanya Bhagavat that you can get, which is like it's an audio book of the whole Chaitanya pastimes, and so you can listen to Chaitanya and actually hear of all the different things that he's doing and stuff, and in that way relate to God as a person. Or you can do Rupjaan meditation and actually visualize God right there with you as a person, either like in a masculine form or a feminine form, and then and you visualize and can just relate fully as a person, so you can like talk or hang out or whatever that you would do. But yeah, that's kind of the realization of God as being a person. And again, I guess all three of those are acting sort of, you've got God as the person, and then you've got the effulgence, which is like the Brahman, and then the super soul. How it's explained is in terms of a sun, where you have the sun, and then you've got the sunshine. So firstly, you're realizing the sunshine of the sun planet, and then you go onto the surface of the sun and realize that there's other beings on that planet, so you have more detailed information because you're on the surface of the sun, and then finally going inside the sun and seeing the deity of the sun planet, the sun god of that planet, would be like realizing God actually in his or her personal form. So yeah, so that's that aspect, God as being a person, and that's the highest principle. I mean, although you have you can go the impersonal way and try and realize God through unmanifested way. That's Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that that's more difficult to actually attain God through the unmanifested. That although you attain the same goal eventually, it's much easier to just approach the Lord personally and just go that way. So yeah, definitely Bhakti Yoga is recommended. And when the Lord came himself as Lord Chaitanya, he taught Bhakti Yoga and gave the Maha Mantra chanting as the best way to actually Bhakti Yoga is the attainment, it's the means and it's the end as well. So you do Bhakti Yoga in order to do Bhakti Yoga. Your devotional service continues eternally. So it's outside of the four goals of life. Although the four goals of life are achieved, the Bhakti Yoga is considered the fifth goal of life. So you have sense gratification, economic development, religiosity, and then liberation. So they're like your four goals of life, and everyone's potentially endeavouring for one of those four things in life. But Bhakti Yoga or devotional service is considered the fifth goal of life, and that's actually transcendental to all of those four, and all four of those are achieved through the practice of devotional service. So when you do devotional service, those other things are actually achieved as well. So you can actually structure the whole society in a way that it can actually function with God in the centre. The whole idea of devotional service is that if God is in the centre of our activities, then they actually work, because God is the centre of all activities. It's only that we were given the option to not have a relationship just through free will, and that is given to us in freedom. Like, no one has to believe in God in the world. It's fully up to the individual whether they choose to or not. However, it's kind of a bit of a trick, because if you don't, you get Maya instead. So you either have Maya or you have God. So Maya is actually the Lord's servant. There's Maya Devi. So Maya is like she's a servant of God, and if you don't want to serve God and please God and actually be happy, then you get Krishna's other servant, Maya, instead. And what Maya does is she makes everything else extremely difficult. So everything is really difficult and painful, you could say. Basically, she just you could say punishes, or like basically she's just saying, get there, like you're messed up, you're doing the wrong thing, like you're meant to be serving God and being happy, so I'm going to make this all really difficult and make your life really like stressful and harsh and stuff, just until you finally get the point that you actually want to be happy. Because happiness is another synonym for God. Another synonym for God is happiness. And that's actually universal, that out of all living beings that are created, there isn't one that doesn't desire happiness. So this is coming from Kripalji, where I heard this. And so every living being desires happiness, ultimately. And happiness is another synonym for God. So basically every being is created ultimately to acquire happiness, or to attain God realization, or to love God. So in every living being lies the seed of love of God. And if you're not serving God, then you get Maya instead, which just means things are very difficult, and the system's kind of made that way so that we can become happy. If we didn't have Maya, then we wouldn't know that something was wrong, and that we're actually meant to be in this mood of service, with God as the center of our activities, and all the variety of ways that can be done as well. So essentially like God is happiness. The other thing I was going to talk about was the soul's journey, which is the idea that we are a soul that's actually on a journey, that's going through these multiple lives, and kind of the idea that there can be like past lives and stuff like that, and that the other people who are in your life are sometimes you can meet people that you've actually known in a past life, or that you have some connection to through something like that. So that's a really interesting idea, is actually the soul's journey, which is like, and you can look at that in terms of your relationship with God, that you've kind of been on this journey and developing this relationship, and this is where it's gotten to, or whatever. This is how far your relationship has come, and so seek to deepen that relationship. And just the idea that there's this soul's journey, and you can go to like different planets and stuff like that. You can travel like to other planets in the universe and stuff like that. There's actually travelling that can go around. One of the most interesting things in reference to travelling is Narada Muni from Hare Krishna. He's one of the devotees of Krishna, and he's considered an incarnation of Krishna, and he travels around with this veena. He's got a veena that he plays, and he can travel anywhere within the spiritual universes and the material universe. So he can just like go around all these different places, and he can just like, he's always playing his vina and always chanting, and so he just continually does his service and just travels around the universe, going all these different places and doing all these different pastimes and stuff. But he's like a very, like, he knows Krishna very well, and they're really like good friends or whatever. So that's really interesting. You can look at like your eternal relationship, because you have like your eternal relationship with God, which you can reveal as being like a servant, or like a friend, or like the parent of God, or as the lover of God, and then also realize your relationships with other people in your life, or like in reference to other beings that you know and stuff, which all exists on the eternal level, at that spiritual platform. That's where you've got all these pure relationships with other beings, and pure relationships primarily with God is what you would want to focus on. But obviously during your cultivation practice, once you get really through to love, then you really start developing your relationships, and so you can develop your relationship with God in the personal form. The highest rasa is as the partner of God. So if you can get that partner, being a partner of, and then realize your other relationships in your life as well, and in terms of spiritual, when you're looking out for the spiritual well-being of other individuals around you, then your relationships become spiritualized in that way. So relationship really, if you go through a curve sort of like your actions and stuff, if you go right around your actions and then into your knowledge and then to love, then you get love and relationship, and that's all acting at the same time. So that's the soul's journey. Yeah, like other planets and stuff. This is something that's talked about in oh, actually we'll take a break. I hope that was good talk. Kind of, I went around quite a bit different things, but that's just how it happened. I hope that was all good. Yeah.